calls for action, and now, nip it in the bud.
Michelle Pfeiffer? The only true Catwoman is Julie Newmar, Lee Merriweather, or Eartha Kitt. And I didn't need molded plastic to improve my physique. Pure West.
Good morning, angels.
Good morning, Charlie.
I love it when a plan comes together.
It's time. Let's talk about music, movies, and mostly television from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff.
Good afternoon to one and all. Welcome to the Good Stuff Live. My name is Dave Sundstrom, and if you enjoy talking about music, movies, mostly TV from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, well, you've come to the right place. Today, I've got a different version of a live stream for you today. We're going to talk about Louie Anderson. So we've got lots of folks here. Got about 40 people in the live stream. It's awesome to see so many people here. Now, let me quickly look through the chat here and welcome as many people as I can. I don't want to take a lot of time to do this today because I'm going to keep this live stream to pretty much an hour. The Josh Sings is here. Kenneth Wilkinson, Superfan Lance Chaffin, Tom McCluskey, a.k.a. The Hungry Jerk, Tim the Enchanter, Superfan Tracy Roth Myers, Mark Burchett. Let's see. Who else is here? Set Medic is here. Welcome. I did say Superfan Tracy Roth Myers, right? I think so. Salvador Congialosi. Yeah, rest in peace for sure. We're going to talk about Louie Anderson quite a bit today. But you know what? We've also lost other actors and entertainers over the course of last couple of weeks. Anyone who, if anybody would like to mention any of those folks and share memories, well, you're certainly more than welcome to. Elaine Solomon, good to have you here. It's been a while since I've seen you in the live stream. Welcome. Let's see who else is here. Scrolling. Keith E., welcome. Good to have you here as well. Steve Tevis, good to have you here. I enjoyed your video on people that are still living. Folks, head on over to the Life and Sad Ending and check out Steve's latest video. And did I notice someone that might be related to you in that video as well, Steve? Very well done. Very well done. Let's see who else we have here. I might miss someone, and if I do, I apologize. Bus Stop, welcome. Precious Snowflake, good to have you here with us. Let's see. GMY, welcome. My good friend Danny Staten from South Carolina, good to have you here as well. Robert Pons, Bob Pons, welcome. Bruce Coleman, Kimberly Wiederholt, John H., Joe B., Mo Obbs, John F. Kennedy, Mobile Armored Strike Command, Monk Martin, Mary Garner, Karen Lester, Rob D. Titan Gaming, Spike, Superfan Spike Spikerson. I think I've worked my way through it. Joey Noble, good to have you here as well. All right, so today we're talking about Louie Anderson. Let me share quickly. Let me just read a little bit about Louie, and then I'll get to a super chat that just popped in. Louie Anderson was an American stand-up comedian, actor, author, and game show host. He created the cartoon series Life with Louie and wrote 4 books. And the books that he wrote, so much of it had to do with his family, including Hey Mom, Stories of My Mother, but you can read them too, which he published in 2018. He was the initial host for the 3rd revival of the game show Family Feud. He was most recently seen on television in the FX comedy series Baskets, where he played The mother of Zach Galifianakis's characters. Zach played twins on the show, and he was nominated for an Emmy 3 times and won it once. Anderson performed a stand-up show called Louie Larger Than Life in Las Vegas from 2003 to 2012. And you know what? The thing I loved about Louie's stand-up was it was fairly clean stand-up. It was something that everybody could go to and be comfortable with. You pop out of that real quick, but what a guy. Now, typically, he did achieve, he broke into the entertainment business during the 80s, but really, when I got to know Louie Anderson through his TV shows and his appearances on like HBO, that was the 90s. So we're kind of breaking with tradition here, talking with Louie, but he was such a force in the world of comedy that it just feels like it's the right thing to do. Quickly wanted to get to this super chat from Anthony C. Brown. He says, I remember early comedian Louie Anderson and by accident crashed into Christine Baskets and rediscovered him. The old saying is 100% true. Some things truly get better with age. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for your sharing your memories, Anthony. Truly appreciated. And you know what? It was interesting. Louie's portrayal of Christine Baskets was possibly the most honest portrayal I've seen of a man playing a woman, where you just didn't really realize it because Louie wasn't playing her as a caricature. I remember reading that he was playing Christine as his mother. And I'll share more on that in a little bit. But I really do want to say thank you for the super chat, Anthony. Truly appreciate it. I had a phone call while I was talking there. I want to make sure it's nothing that I need to address. No, it's not right now. I can catch that later. All right. So let me quickly go through here and let's hit a few comments about Louie. And let's address some of these things here. Joan Harfum says, why no tribute to Peter Scolari? Bosom buddies with Tom Hanks? Absolutely. Now, Peter passed away a couple of months ago. And I addressed Peter in my community section, and my brother over on his channel actually made a video about Peter. So I love Bosom Buddies, and I love Peter also in Newhart. But today is about Louie Anderson. So that's why we're not necessarily focusing on Peter. Peter's as monumental as his impact was in the world of entertainment and comedic television. That's topic for another day, perhaps. All right. Josh sings, well, it's good to have you here right now. But, stick around as long as you can. And Josh points out that Bob Saget passed away recently. We had Meatloaf pass away. I can never pronounce her name correctly, but Yvette Mimieux, I want to say. She passed away. I loved her in The Black Hole, Disney's The Black Hole. Let me get to this comment from Jeff Sadin. Jeff Sadin or Sadin, either way, I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. I met Louie Anderson at a hotel when I was using the toilet. He opened the door and popped his in while I was sitting there. It was so funny. Holy cow. Holy cow. What an experience that would be. Superfan Spike Spikerson says, I don't know how to feel about Louie. I seriously thought he died a few years back. No, and as a matter of fact, he has been a force in television, as I mentioned on the comedic show on FX called Baskets for a few years now. It just finished its run last year, or a couple of years ago. Kimberly said, I was sad to hear he passed. I did not know he was sick. And John H. said, I admired him for participating in ABC's Celebrity Diving Show. I forgot the name of it. I don't remember that show, but Superfan Tracy Rothmeyer said, I remember Louie in a serious role and he was great. You know what Louie was? There was beneath the comedy, there was a tremendous amount of, a little bit of familial angst, if you will. And that really helped him, I think, in some of his performances. And it also helped him as a human being. Sometimes as entertainers, it's easy to lose track of some of the things that are really important in life. And I never felt like Louie lost that. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer said Family Feud too. Absolutely. As I mentioned, the third revival of Family Feud was fun, and he did a great job. I'm going to reread Jeff's comment because I think Jeff made some changes to it. I met Louie Anderson at a hotel while I was using a toilet. He opened the door and popped his head in while I was in there. It was so funny. We both had a great laugh. That makes more sense than what was originally said. So I think the head part is the important part there. Let's see. Louie's demeanor during his comedy set him apart from everyone else. He was just so normal. It was a great comedian. We could all relate to Louie Anderson. At least I could. Let's see. Yes, in Life with Louie's cartoon version was frightfully real. Spike Spikerson says Peter Bogdanovich didn't get much notice. You're right. There wasn't a lot of... I saw it on the news when he passed away, and there was so many, and there has been so many people passing away recently that I think that was one that kind of came and went. But I'm sure those that knew and loved Peter best, certainly wasn't without much notice. Precious Snowflake says Louie's first comedy special in the 1980s was watched by 3 of our families at Thanksgiving. Louie was talking about his family at Thanksgiving. We still quote so many of his lines from that show. I remember that show. That's the one where he talked about how mom would always have to sell the sweet potatoes. And I'm not even going to try to do it, but so funny and so spot on. I think we've all been there when there's an item on the table that's not getting eaten, and the person who prepared it, typically mom, feels responsible to, kind of sell it and try to convince folks to have a little bit of it. I'm going to flash forward or jump forward to a super chat. There's a super chat from super fan David Zintara. He says, I don't know much about Louie Anderson, but I saw The Wrong Guys on cable TV once. I don't even remember Louie in that movie, which I like that movie. That's the movie with Will Ferrell and Marky Mark. What's his name? Mark Wahlberg. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate the support. It means a lot to me, David. And, you're also a super fan, a channel member. So thank you so much for all you do. Here's what I'm going to do. I've been thinking a lot about Louie. I didn't put together a video, the traditional video, like I normally do. And that's because Marvin Lee Aday, also known as Meatloaf, passed away, or I'd gotten news that he'd passed away. And so that morning, Saturday morning, I whipped together a video because, I was such a huge Meatloaf fan. And I put together a video, memorial kind of video for him. And then like an hour later, I heard that Louie had passed away. And I was just heartbroken that, it just feels like so much lately. We've lost so many great entertainers. So anyway, I didn't put together a video. I just didn't have it in my heart to do it. And so I thought, what I'll do instead is I'll do this live stream. And that'll give everyone a chance to kind of celebrate and remember Louie. And I'm gonna share some thoughts here. Carl Dunn said, "Coming to America," him working at McDougal's. That's really one of the memories I have right away of Louie. And let me go ahead and share this. Does anybody remember Louie's first movie? At least this is the first movie that I remember Louie Anderson in. I'm going to scroll down to the chat here at the bottom of the chat and see if anybody can recognize this scene. I've blurred it out a little bit, but this is the first thing that I remember Louie Anderson in. It's a mid-'80s film, and it was a brief appearance, but I'm going to see if anybody can recognize that scene. Let's see. Superfan Lance Chaffin says, I'm making meatloaf in honor of the singer Meatloaf. He would appreciate that. That was a nickname that he had when he was in school, and he, instead of running away from the nickname, he embraced it. John H., nicely done. Ferris Bueller, absolutely. Let me go ahead and bring that in. There you go. Flowers for Ferris, who wasn't feeling well. Save Ferris, right? And those of you that remember the movie. Says Louie was actually in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Then why have I seen this scene? Was it in a TV version of it? When I saw this image, I remembered seeing it. But then again, sometimes I remember things that never happened. All right, let's keep going. Thanks for the info, Precious Snowflake, and good job, John H., in recognizing the scene. Now, of course, the scene that I remember, or the movie that I remember him best from in the late 80s, was this, which Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. And I love this quote. It was, I can't remember who was interviewing Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy. It was for Coming to America 2. And they were talking about Louie Anderson. And Arsenio said, they made us put Louie Anderson in that movie. And then Eddie confirmed that. And he said the studio was like, there has to be a white person in the movie. And Eddie was like, what? So he thought, who is the funniest white guy around? And that's how Louie got into the movie. All right. John H. says, Louie's diving reality show was called Splash, and ABC aired it in 2013. Do not remember that. Yeah, I must have seen it somewhere as well, Precious Snowflake. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. So, thinking about Louie, what I wanted to do was share some quotes, and I wanted to share some of the tweets from Twitter that I saw recently about Louie, and I'll do that for the next minute or two. The first one is, I love this, and this was early on with Louie. He says, I can't stay long. I'm in between meals. One of the things was he never was hesitant to joke about his love for food, his appetite, and his size. And that made him so human to me. So darn human. And great quote there. Jennifer Tilly said this, actress Jennifer Tilly. The first time I was on Johnny Carson, Louie Anderson was the other guest. I was very young and nervous, but Louie saved my performance with hilarious observations on my meandering stories. I always felt fondly towards him after that. And then there were a couple other tweets revolving around Life with Louie, which was a fun comedy animated show for kids on Fox during the 90s. And it was quite popular, so popular, as you can see there on the right. Louie had his own Life with Louie SpaghettiOs kind of thing from Franco-American. Another quote from Louie, and I mentioned earlier that he was very clean with his comedy. He says, I'm a 7 o'clock act. My people want to go to a show, a dinner, and then go home and go to bed. You know what? He knew who his audience was, and he knew what they were looking for in a performance, and he delivered every single time. Adam Sandler said, dang, I'm going to change that there. Dang, such a great, funny guy. Made us all laugh so much. Loved him. Condolences to his whole family. And Rob Schneider added to that, a brilliant stand-up and wonderful craftsman of silliness. Louie Anderson came to see me perform at the Tropicana in Vegas, and I was thrilled and honored. He could not have been kinder and more generous. Another quote from Twitter, this one from Kevin Janison, said, so saddened about Louie Anderson, comedic icon. Our paths crossed a few times. I will always remember free ice cream day at Ben & Jerry's in 2009 for a charity event. He scooped his butt off and was so genuinely kind to everyone he interacted with. He will be missed. Tracy Rothmeyer says that she wants to see Basket. You should. If you're a fan of Zach Galifianakis and that kind of odd humor, you will enjoy it, and you will be surprised. I promise you, you will be surprised by Louie Anderson's performance as the mother in that show. Just so real and so spot on. And Like I said, Louie's always said that was he was portraying his own mother. Joe B says Louie's dad was my favorite character in Life with Louie. Me too. I didn't know at the time Louie's real father was not a very good person. That's true as well. Louie Anderson said Minnesotans really think they run the whole world. And I love that. Great quote from Louie. Couple of other tweets here. One from Gilbert Gottfried. And look at that. He says, this photo is really sad now, or very sad now. R.I.P. Bob Saget and Louie Anderson, both good friends that will be missed. Dave Collier, Bob Saget's co-star from Full House, said, R.I.P. Louie Anderson. Louie once said to me backstage when we were co-headlining in Detroit, Dave, how you've stayed so nice all these years. Must be because you're from Detroit. And Pee Wee Herman said, man, am I sad. And Paul Rubens, man, am I sad that my friend Louie Anderson left the earth. What a light has dimmed. I've been reading tributes and Valentines to him all day, and everyone who knew him mentions how nice and kind he was. Louie was a real sweetheart of a man. All right. Tom points out that if this is your first live stream, it's a little different than my traditional live streams. We have a topic, but we go all over the place for the first half of the live stream, and the second half is trivia. Today's more like my traditional Sunday social in that there won't be any trivia, and it's more conversation. Try to pay a little more attention to what's going on in the chat. But I want to focus on Louie Anderson. We just lost him, and on the 21st, so a couple of days ago now, blood cancer was the culprit. And, he was a relatively young feller, 68 years. Let's see. Kimberly Wiederholt says, Joe B., most comedians have a very, very rough childhood. That's, I would say while it's something of a generalization, it's often true. They pull their comedy from some of the trauma and heartache they felt growing up. Louie Anderson also said, all great comedians make me laugh, but people make me laugh more. He knew that the funniest comedy, and I've got a clip later on that I'll share, the funniest comedy just came from random observations about his family. Danny says, no trivia, thank God. I didn't know you hated the trivia so much, Danny. Let's see. Groovy Highway says, the funniest thing I ever heard Louie Anderson say was, those Almost Home cookies, well, they had to rename those for me to Almost Out of the Store. Michael Rochester says, for most of the 90s, he stopped being funny and started talking about his abusive childhood. I didn't even realize he was a comedian anymore. You know what? Louie didn't hesitate or didn't shy away from the fact that there were moments in his life growing up that were really tough. And that, to me, that didn't make him any less funny. When he was on the stage, I thought he was great. But, I saw many interviews with him where I realized this guy had been through something. Superfan Tracy Rothmeyer says, blood cancer is awful. So true, so true. Cancer, it's just horrible. I'm not coining a new phrase when I say cancer sucks. It's just one of those things where I would love to see us get a hold of that. Let's go to some more tweets. Jim Gaffigan said, I feel so lucky that I knew you, Louie Anderson. So funny, so gentle. You are always encouraging. A Midwestern big brother from another big Midwestern family in this crazy business. You conquered stand-up, writing, and most recently we fell in love with your acting in Baskets. And I'm going to do real quick while we're just sitting here, while I'm just talking, we're going to throw on a little bit of background music, just a little something. That feels appropriate. Just nice and quiet. Tom Green said, it was hard to hear about the passing of Louie Anderson. He was one of the great legendary comics who I've known, who often made a point to reach out to me and check in. I was always amazed when he did that. Rest in peace, Louie. You were a funny, funny, funny man. All right. Anthony Brown says, comedians who take on dramatic roles, Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire, Louie, Christine Baskets, bring something special, pathos, to their characters and performances. Absolutely. You could see it in Louie's eyes. Look at that, just that picture of Louie there. And look at his eyes. And those eyes were so prominent in his portrayal of Christine. Lance Chaffin says, my dad died of colon cancer in 2007. So sorry to hear that, Lance. Anna Nilsson, welcome to the live stream, says, I'm from Sweden, but I saw Louie Anderson on TV in the 90s. As did I. I think the first thing I saw Louie in on television was an HBO comedy special. And I actually have the promotional clip from that I'll share in just a little bit. He does look a little presidential, doesn't he, Tracy? Absolutely. You know what? Louie would appreciate this joke. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says, I wonder if he heard there was meatloaf in heaven and said, I gotta get me some. That's good. And I know Louie would appreciate that. Lance reminds everybody that I do appreciate it when you click on the like button on the live stream. YouTube seems to value that, and so I do as well. So if you're enjoying the live stream, if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, thinking about and celebrating the life of the wonderful comedian Louie Anderson, please give it a thumbs up. All right, let's see what we got on the next slide. I think another quote. Yeah. Louie said this one time. He said, I would trade everything I have to have a happier childhood. Going back to that comment earlier about Louie, he got real when it came to talking about his life. And, yes, his comedy came from it, but also he didn't shy away from talking about, some of the pain that he felt as a youngster and as a teen. Michael McKean says Baskets was such a phenomenal second act for Louie Anderson. I wish he'd gotten a third. Rest in peace. And Paula Poundstone said Louie Anderson made me laugh really hard. The folks at Comedy Central said Louie Anderson was a warm and hilarious presence in comedy. That warm is why I think I clipped this one. He truly was warm. He'll be missed. And Joey DeCat said, R.I.P. Louie Anderson. If you haven't seen him in Baskets, check it out. He won an Emmy for his role. Rich Adwood says that in the 1980s, now I did not know this, and I've seen this movie. Louie Anderson was a cab driver in Cloak and Dagger with Dabney Coleman and Henry Thomas. Yeah, that's a great little movie. I don't remember that. Carl Dunn says he was a Hollywood Squares legend. And Kenneth Wilkinson asks if Louie wrote his own comedy. He absolutely did. Hey, Rex Trek, good to have you here with us. Thanks for reminding folks about the likes. Jason Goldtrap, superfan Jason Goldtrap, says he was not abrasive, yelling, or profane. He was just funny. Absolutely. That's one of the things that I love so much about Louie Anderson. Tim the Enchanter says, don't be afraid to get a cancer screening done. I've had 3 family members die last year of cancer. Absolutely. Let's make sure that we're doing everything that we can to stay in this world as long as we can. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says, Dave, I almost didn't type that. But you're right. It was funny, and Louie appreciated funny. So why not, as we're celebrating the life of a truly funny man? Liberty and Freedom says that I have a great listening voice. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. Rich Atwood says he was sitting at the airport waiting for Henry Thomas, but he didn't have money. I got to go back and watch that. You know what? It's one of those movies that I haven't seen for so darn long that I remember the general gist of it, but the individual scenes, it's all a blur to me. Let's see. Superfan Nancy D says, and if you're not getting those tests, you better stay prayed up. I'd say do both. All right. Let's do this. I'm going to take a break for a second here. No, we're not. We're going to keep working through this deck. Another quote that Louie Anderson said, I had been asking the universe and God to send me away for me. Get that. For me to help me. Show business has been so wonderful to me, and it came in the form of that. I thought that was really insightful. Love that quote. All right, so one last thing I wanted to share with you. This comes from the book, Casey Wilson's autobiography. She's an actress, and she's worked with Louie in the past, or she hasn't worked with Louie in the past, but she encountered Louie on a train, and I wanted to share her experience that she had with him. Suddenly, with zero warning, the comedian and actor Louie Anderson appeared like a freight train. May I sit down? I'd never met him, but knew him as the host of Family Feud and more recently from Baskets, where he played Zach Galifianakis' mother. He took a seat so close he was almost in my lap. He was in my lap. Where was my husband is a question I never once asked. I felt a calm, loving sweetness from Louie. He looked flustered, but I could feel warmth had entered this space where it had once been cold. So he turned to me and said so genuinely, I'm such a fan. What was that show you were in, that very funny, cool show where you were so funny? Happy Endings? Who was that character? That character was so funny and vulnerable, he repeated. Penny. She says, I had never felt this level of sincerity. I told him how much I loved his portrayal of the mom on Baskets. What I love is that even though you are man playing woman, you aren't doing the slightest bit of a caricature. You are this woman. You inhabit the role so respectfully and deeply. You simply are. And it's such a moving performance. He smiled and said, I'm playing my mom. She isn't with us, and I always thought one day maybe I'd get to play my dad. But here I am, playing my mom. Well, actually, she is playing this part, and I'm channeling her 100%. He was quiet, and I saw he had tears in his eyes. It was such a wild moment. Louie said this. He said, I was 10th of 11 kids in an alcoholic, abusive, poor family. We all want things we can't have. And I found comedy. Saved his life. I think he really believed that. All right, let me go back to some other comments from folks. I'm going to go ahead and take off the PowerPoint. Here we go. James Bodnerchuk said, I never followed Louie's career. Seems like I missed out. Absolutely. But you know what the great thing is he left it behind for us to enjoy. I'd encourage you to just start with some of his stand-up. He was such a funny guy. YouTube user said Louie was the one performer I would like to have seen in Vegas, but was unable to. He is a legend up there with Rickles, Dangerfield, and a few others. Rich Atwood points out that he did voice acting in Baby's Kids. And Anna Nielsen says it's sad that so many nice, famous people have died recently, and very true. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says, if you can find something that truly makes you happy and makes life easier, go for it. For sure. For sure. Hey, it's good to have you with us, Emily. You know what? That's the great thing about live streams. You can pop in whenever you have the time. Let's see. I think on Wednesday we're probably going to do something a little lighter in terms of spirits. I as much as I love celebrating the lives of those that have passed, sometimes I like to think about other things. This can get me down a little bit when I'm constantly thinking about folks that have just left us and that kind of stuff. But it's a great suggestion, and don't worry, we will do more of that stuff. Let's see. Rosemary Magrino says he was a funny guy. I saw him on The Tonight Show several times. Yeah, that's one of the places he got his start. And I remember him on Coming to America. Tom says, if you like clean humor, check out Greg Upton. Baby boomer comedy filmed in Utah. Great stuff. I should check that out. Here I am in Utah and don't even know, not even familiar with his comedy. The Thrifting Channel says, hey everyone, I'm glad I caught this live. I am a huge fan of the channel and all TV and movies 70s and 80s. Great to have you with us, the Thrifting Channel. I think I've peeked in on your channel as well. Very interesting. Good stuff you do over there. Let's see. Rex Trick says, imagine Louie doing a movie with John Candy. That would have been cool. And there's nothing wrong with a Sunday nap. That is for sure. Robert Drago says, a sad, sudden loss. And Rosemary says, Louie and Meatloaf on the same day. Yeesh. Yeah. Tim the Enchanter says, it's always good to celebrate the lives of people that we lose. I agree. Ed Myers says, I taped a lot of the HBO comedy specials on Betamax and still have the tapes. Yeah, dry bar comedy would be in Utah. We have some crazy, crazy liquor law rules here. Liquor laws in the state. All right. Emily says, wasn't Louie on Match Game and Hollywood Squares? I'm not sure about Match Game. I'm pretty sure he was on Hollywood Squares. Joe B says, another Louie joke. Every time I go to the beach, people try pushing me back in the water. Hurry up, he's dying. That's a good one, too. You're very welcome. Let's see. As funny as this sounds, he reminded me of a metal version of Roseanne Barr. Now, here's the funny thing. And I'm going to share a video here next, I think. It's just a bunch of clips of Louie and his shows. It ends with an interview that he did with Roseanne. They were huge friends. They went out on tour together. So let's do that. I'm going to stop here for a second. Let's go ahead and watch the video. Hang on one second. We got to turn off the music for a moment. And let's go to the video.
Don't miss the HBO Comedy Hour with Louie Anderson. It's chock full of funny faces.
Oh, great, come grab a bite that turd. Oh, right there.
Loaded with comedic faces.
Now, what is that speed limit there you're going? What is that going? 100, 110!
All in good taste.
Venison. Oh, it's delicious.
The HBO Comedy Hour, Louie Anderson, Comedy on Canvas.
Life with Louie is never exactly normal.
You don't sneak up on a guy sleeping on an ironing board.
You see, his family's a little strange.
We never have enough sweet potatoes.
And his fish eats more than he does.
What do you feeding?
Chicken, donut, cheesecake.
But hey, who wouldn't want to live this kind of life?
This is a tough choice.
Well, you're in luck, because you're going to get the chance.
What?
Just watch Life with Louie.
How do you like your Scott? Burger short.
All new later today, right after X-Men on Fox Kids.
You've laughed with Louie. Now you can eat with Louie. And Mom, Dad, and Tommy, too.
What are you so excited about?
New Life with Louie pasta shapes from Franco-American.
Jeez, who are these people? Oh, my gosh. You need a course in child safety. A person can get hurt here. You have to be like a Navy SEAL to be able to get here.
Get ready for a screaming good time on an all-new Ultimate Goosebumps coming up next as Louie Live of The Simpsons continues on Fox Kids. And find out if you've won the real-life home of The Simpsons by watching their season premiere this Sunday, 8, 7 Central on Fox. And now, let's get back to the show.
Nothing like a little spring cleaning.
You know, I grew up in 10th of 11 children, first of all, which is an insane idea.
Insane.
Does the people say, were you Catholic? I go, no, my dad was a musician. Which I don't know why that makes people laugh, but it always does.
I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it does as well. All right, let's go back to comments here. And I'm going to, by the way, wrap things up in about 10 minutes. So this is just a shorter live stream today. I wanted to celebrate the life of Louie Anderson. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says, the great thing for us all is that there is YouTube where we can find shows we missed or loved and watch them. Yeah, absolutely. And if not YouTube, there's other platforms like Pluto TV, Tubi. All of these are free of charge, where you can find a lot of stuff out there that, you know, go back a couple of decades and just celebrate the good times. All right, let's see. Yeah, Superfan Tracy Roth Myers points out that Michael Jackson and Farrah Fawcett died on the same day too. Very, very sad day. It's interesting when this happens. One of them typically falls into the shadows, and as strange it is, it felt like Louie kind of fell into the shadow of Meatloaf. I would have guessed it would have been the other way around, but everything I saw on the internet was about Meatloaf that day. And when I watched the evening news, it was about Meatloaf, and I love Meatloaf. I was one of the first people to ever buy Bat Out of Hell. I picked it up when it first became available, and it was a slow burn kind of album. It didn't become popular for a couple of years. But as much as I love Meatloaf, I have to say I thought Louie's death was as important to remember and to recognize as Mr. Marvin Lee Aday. All right. So, and that when Michael passed away, Farrah, her passing just completely felt like it got swept under the rug. Thanks for sharing that, Tracy. He was the host of Family Feud. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, "Hey Dave, happy Sunday. So sorry to hear about the passing of Louie Anderson. Such a great comic of my time, for sure." John H. points out that Roseanne was from SLC. Sure was. Utah native. Danny Staten says, "I swear it's a Mandela effect, but I remember Louie on Saturday Night Live." I don't remember him on Saturday Night Live, but maybe he was. I'm not sure. Let's see. Tom has a working Betamax. That's impressive. I have a working VHS, and you know what? I still put it to good use. Mandela effect is when you learn something that's contrary to what you thought, and you feel like it's somehow everything you always knew about one particular thing has changed. At least if my understanding of Mandela effect is correct. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says, "I forget which episode of Touched by an Angel he was on." Yeah, I don't remember him on Touched by an Angel, but I didn't watch a ton of that show, which is also was filmed in Utah, by the way. Lance suggests a $6 Million Man Wednesday live stream. Well, you are a super fan, Lance. Okay. Sounds like a good plan. Let's do $6 Million Man on Wednesday. Okay, let's see. Tom says that he's seen Paula Poundstone. Weird. I haven't, I'm not real familiar with her work. I mean, I think I've seen her a time or two on like a late night talk show. Kimberly Wiederhold says Louie was in the episode where Greg Evigan played his son. It was a music episode. Interesting. Hey, Shannon. Good to have you here with us. Keith says, "Just listening to it all. Thanks for the good memories." Well, you're very welcome. That's what I'm hoping this is. I'm hoping it's good memories for everybody. I mean, it's sad that we lost him. We lost him so early. And someone asked earlier if leukemia and blood cancer are the same thing. I'm not sure, but I kind of assumed it was similar. John H. says, "I was in the audience of Roseanne's talk show once back in 1998. I suspect that was the source of that interview clip with Louie." You suspected correct. That was, there's a number of clips with Louie and Roseanne together. They went out and toured together. The Thrifting Channel says, "When I think of Louie, I think of the heavyset comedians and actors of the day like John Candy, but also Sam Kinison. They were all so funny and memorable." Yeah, you just named a couple. I loved Kinison's rock and roll brand of humor, but there was none finer than John Candy. And I really put Louie in the John Candy camp for sure. I'm glad you caught the stream as well and were able to celebrate Louie's life with us, Robert. Let's see. We keep scrolling through. James Bodnarchuk says, "Seemed like a great human being. Will definitely check out his work for sure." I'd say start with his stand-up and maybe end with catching a few episodes of Baskets. If you don't want to catch, if you don't have FX, there's some clips on YouTube where you can see what Louie was really up to when it came to his portrayal of Christine Baskets. Tom says he's having buffering issues. Sorry about that, my friend. And Precious Snowflake says, "Thank you for doing this live stream. It's weird how someone you never met could have such an impact on your life. I guess that says a lot." I don't really think it's all that weird. I think about going back to Meatloaf, someone I never met. I went and saw him live. I caught him in concert, but we'd never talked. But his passing had a huge impact on me. That's one of the reasons I couldn't do another video that day, was just learning about Meatloaf's passing was tough for me, because his music had got me through some tough times as a teenager. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, fun fact about Louie Anderson, he had a small non-speaking role as the delivery man in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You really? Actually, we talked about that at the very beginning, Terrell. I know you were late to join us, and I actually shared an image from that. Let's see what else we got. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says they both were on Twitter the same day, almost same billing. Yeah. John H. says Ed McMahon died on the same time as MJ and Farrah Fawcett. That's right. I think it was the same day. I think you're right. Emily Miller says, I think it has to do with how much media attention they received in life. Sometimes that's true. Karen Lee Maloney says, Dave, you have such a kind heart. Well, thank you so much. I try. Don't always... I'm not always as kind and as I should be, but I try. You're right. Louie died the day after Meatloaf, but word came on the same day. It came on was Saturday morning, right? Meatloaf died Friday evening and Louie died on Saturday morning. And so the announcements were made close together. Cool Moon said, I met Louie 5 times in the 80s and 90s. And he met my son when he was a kid. Incredibly nice man, very respectful and funny. I will love Louie forever. Let's see. Thrifting Channel says, I always preferred Betamax to VHS. You know, a superior technology, but it didn't catch on for whatever reason. Rob Aiken says, JFK, C.S. Lewis, and Aldous Huxley all died on the same day. Did not know that. Definitely check out Baskets. Auntie M said, my father passed away on 9/11/2003, same day as John Ritter and as Johnny Cash. Let's see. Roomdog 40 says, Louie was brilliant in Baskets. I've never seen a performance like it. I agree. It's one of those where I seriously, the first time I saw it, I thought, does Louie Anderson have a twin sister? Because it was just that authentic and real. All right. Terrell Eugene Bellinger says, right, C.S. Lewis and Aldous Huxley's deaths were swept under the rug or just not paid attention to, right? Tim the Enchanter said he played Winston Churchill on Drunk History. I haven't seen that. Greg Garden says, Louie was the original Cousin Larry yes, he was, in the pilot. The original pilot version of Perfect Strangers. You're very welcome, Lance. I love doing these live streams. James Bodnerchuk, 5 Neat Guys, SCTV. That's a really funny clip for those folks who want to see some great John Candy stuff. Those SCTV clips, which are plentiful here on YouTube. They are a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, John Panette is another one who is very much like Louie in his style of humor. I have not read Louie's books, Tim. I've read, pieces and passages from them, but I am now thinking I might want to pick up an audiobook, maybe his last audiobook. Robert Dragoff says, I like Kinnison's style of screaming his punchline. Yeah, he and Bobcat Goldthwait, right? They seem to, that's their style, was a little bit of a scream. You're very welcome, Tracy, superfan Tracy Roth-Myers. See you on Wednesday. Yeah, check on your Meatloaf. Enjoy. Kimberly Wiederholt says, I love to read. Maybe I'll try them when I get a chance. You know what? Reading is such a pleasurable, relaxing experience, whether it's an audiobook or just sitting by the fireplace with a good light and relaxing and reading. I love it. Dorothea Walker says, we have lost so many in January. Yeah, we've still got a week to go. Oh, you're very welcome, Tom. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Yeah, we already talked a little bit about it. He was on the 3rd version of Family Feud. Did a great job. Meatloaf actually passed away before Louie. but I get what you're saying. Let's see. Viva J, good to have you here. Says, thanks for all you do. Sorry I haven't been on your live streams lately. I've been listening to the past half hour driving home, so couldn't comment. Rest in peace, Meatloaf and Louie Anderson. You know what? Whether you catch them live or on the replay, I appreciate it. I appreciate the support, Viva J. Kimberly Wiederholt says, I've never seen Baskets. I'll have to check it out. Absolutely. Check it out. It's on the FX network. I think you can still watch the reruns if you can catch it on video on demand on that channel. Robert Dragoff says, I don't remember Bobcat as much as Louie. Bobcat's still with us. I probably remember Bobcat as well because I just thought he was so funny in the late 80s, early 90s. Have a great night, Tom. Two great talents. Absolutely, James. Gone way too soon. Terrell says there was an interview that Louie did many years ago where he was talking about Jerry Seinfeld. I'll have to check it out. You know, again, two comedians that kept their act really, really clean and family friendly. Rich Atwood says David Faustino was scared of Sam Kinison because of all the screaming that he did while he was on Married with Children when he was a kid. And David said that he didn't really care for all that yelling. Well, I can see where you're a young kid. That might be tough. Thrash Pondo, my friend Bob, says 2022 is becoming a toughie. I've taken it to calling it Catch 22. It really has been. And John Kelly points out that it was. We lost Sidney Poitier. Now, Betty White we lost on the final day of 2021, but it feels like a 2022 death. Bob Saget, Meatloaf, Louie Anderson. Someone else earlier pointed out Peter Bogdanovich. The list goes on and on. Terrell says Bobcat Goldthwait went to the same high school as the voice of SpongeBob, Tom Kenny. Very cool. Kimberly doesn't listen to audiobooks because she falls asleep. I do too, but that's part of the charm of the audiobook for me. James Boniercheck says, Bobcat, I can't feel my face. And The Thrifting Channel says, I remember Bobcat from the Police Academy films. Do you remember him in Scrooged with Bill Murray? That's probably my favorite performance. He played Bob Cratchit in that movie. He's also in a movie called Chuckles the Clown, which was kind of fun. Low budget comedy. Tom says he once moved David Faustino's furniture, I'm going to say, 35 years ago, and he gave him a $250 tip. Very generous. Bobcat directed a Bigfoot movie called Willow Creek. I didn't know that, Danny. I'll have to check it out. Emily says 2022 is starting out like 2020, losing Bowie and Petty. Yeah, it really sucked. Losing Bowie. Well, they both sucked because they were both real surprises for me. I wasn't expecting either of them. The best part of Louie, aside from his comedy, was that he was appreciative of his fans and he helped other comedians along the way. He never forgot where he came from or who got him there. Yeah. And he points out Ronnie Spector, Yvette Mimieux. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's the best I can do. Yeah, I loved Scrooge. Oh, Hot to Trot. That was another funny Bobcat movie. I don't remember Unhappily Ever After. I'll have to go back and look at that. Roger 1938, good to have you on the live stream, says, if you haven't seen it, catch Louie Anderson's first appearance on Carson. So young, but he absolutely killed it. Yeah, Carson's where he got his start as a stand-up, and he was always appreciative to Johnny for allowing him, time on the show. Michael Garcia said it was sad that Meatloaf and Louie Anderson on the same day. Meatloaf actually passed away the night before, but the announcement came on the same day, so totally get what you're saying. Yes, One Crazy Summer with John Cusack. Another great Bobcat performance. Superfan Tracy Rothmeyer says, terrible start to the year. It's been you know what? I won't lie. It's been a great year for me personally so far. But this kind of news doesn't help, and it definitely terrible start in regards to, great entertainers that are leaving us all too quickly, and some of them very young. Tim the Enchanter says, I love Bobcat and Hot to Trot. The Thrifting Channel says, oh my goodness, that's right. He was in Scrooge. Mimieux. I'm going to try that. Mimieux. I keep saying Mimieux. Mimieux. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Steve. All right. Bobcat did not die. We were talking about comedians from the late 70s or late 80s as long as we were talking about Louie Anderson, and that is where the conversation went. Yes, Bobcat is still alive. Today we're supposed to be talking about Louie Anderson, but the conversation, you know what, on live streams, they sometimes it sometimes goes where it goes. And Bobcat, as I mentioned earlier, was a favorite comedian of mine during the late 80s, early 90s. Oh, Kimberly says I'm not pronouncing Yvette's name wrong. Well, good. Let's see. Robert Dragoff says some deaths are unexpected because we don't know their actual age. I mean, remember Louie announcing. I remember Louie announcing when he turned 60. Yeah, must have been 8 years ago because he was 68. Mrs. Terry Lee Mercer says Google Louie Anderson's name and find the TV Guide list of all his shows. Nice. Steve Tevis says Bobcat did die once in Cleveland. Keith E says 70 people online. Yeah, it's been fun. It's great to have so many people here participating in this celebration of Louie Anderson's life. Sophie Morrison, good to have you on the live stream, said Louie channeled his mom as the matriarch of the Baskets family. So brilliant. Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that. Really, just a brilliant performance. And I was going to say something about it being a fitting kind of capstone to his career, but the career was too short. It wasn't fitting. There was so much potential and so much possibility left in his career and what he could do for his, I think it was, can't remember which comedian said, that there was a great second act and we needed a third. It was Michael McKean that said that on Twitter. He said, his performance as Christine was a great second act after his first act as a stand-up, but we needed a third act. Terrell says, I saw your brother Steve's video on Jenna Van Oy 6 from Blossom earlier today. He did such a great job. Yeah, I think he had a lot of fun putting together that video. Kimberly Wiederhold says, I lost my foster mother after Christmas last year. I'm glad last year is done. Sorry to hear about that loss. And thank you, Emily, for reminding folks to hit the thumbs up, hit that like button. Tom says, most celebrity deaths I hear from Dave's channel, not the news. How do you hear this before the local news tells us? You know what? Typically, it's someone in my comments section. I try to hit my comment section 2 or 3 times a day and reply to as many of the comments as I can. And someone will tell me there if someone has passed away. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream, Robert. Great to have you here. Oh, Twitter's another good way to find out. Frederica27 says, believe it or not, Louie did the college comedy circuit back in the 80s and 90s. My uni hired Louie and Ellen before they were famous. That is really cool. Yeah. Got to get a Twitter account. It's where you do hear a lot of news quickly that way. My brother's channel, Joe B, is just like mine. It's just his name. It's Stephen, spelled with a PH, Sundstrom. You can find it out there on YouTube, and he has many videos. He does a lot of the same type of videos that I do. Because he's a little bit younger than I, a lot of his topics tend to be in the 90s as well. So if you're interested in that, I don't typically cover TV shows and movies from the 90s, and he does. Precious Snowflake said, my stepmom saw Louie in person and got me a signed copy of his book, Dear Dad, Letters from an Adult Child. It says, to Kara, follow your heart. Love, Louie. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Superfan Spike Spikerson says, I saw one of Steve's videos the other night and I thought it was Dave. Yeah. You know what? We were raised in the same home. We have a similar style of delivery. All right, folks. I'm starting to see folks say goodbye, and actually that's a great cue for me to say goodbye as well. It's been really a wonderful time this last hour, talking about the life, celebrating the life of Louie Anderson. Ian, you're always welcome to crash. The problem is that I'm shutting it down here in just a minute, but Ian, it's always a pleasure to have you, and so glad that you popped in at the tail end of this live stream. Hope you can catch it on the replay because it's really been good. It's been great conversation, lots of great memories. Folks are sharing about the wonderful comedian Louie Anderson. All right, so that's it, folks. I've seen a number of reminders from community members out there to hit the like button. If you enjoyed the live stream, please do. Please do. That means the world to me. But, more than anything else, this conversation that we had today, your participation in the live stream, some of my favorite moments. So thank you for remembering Louie Anderson with me. And I hope you all have a tremendous week. Take care.